Earlier today, I talked about the ongoing crisis, the riots across the country, and what I view as the early stages of civil war. And just to quickly clarify what I mean by that is that you have the media defending the riots. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, CNN repeatedly now defending the riots while Trump calls them out as far left extremists and calls them, and says it's terror and things like that. You have these two disparate narratives that are just going to inflame tensions and make everything get worse because neither side agrees with each other. Thus, the only conclusion is in my opinion, is continual destabilization. And the reason I say this is, you'd think if the president came out and said, "Hey, these people are terrorists," then most institutions in this country would be like, "We're going to fall in line. We're not going to stand in defiance of the federal government." They are, and that's unexpected to me. That says that we're headed down a path where no matter what you do, no matter what you threaten them with, they don't agree. They don't see Trump as legitimate. So if Trump says he's going to enforce laws, they don't care. They will outright defend Antifa. Teen Vogue, for instance, just re-upped their story promoting Antifa a day or two after Trump said they were terrorists. So what does that mean for us as a country? The video you see on the screen right now, I can't play it. It's one of the most shocking things I have ever seen. New York City is the focus of this video, right? Because it's our biggest city, arguably our biggest city, in depending on what metric you use. And that video, which I can't play for you, depicts a car completely blacked out, tinted windows, slamming the gas, ramming an NYPD officer standing by himself who goes flying 20 plus feet, spinning in the air and slamming to the ground. It is one of the most shocking videos I've ever seen. New York City is in absolute chaos. And it seems like a lot of people are pointing out the NYPD is kind of standing down. There have been some stories of, the NYPD taking a knee, supporting the protests. I want to make sure that's clear too. But we're seeing what looks like the New York police just not getting involved. In this tweet from Luke Rutkowski of We Are Change, he says, "I'm telling you guys, the NYPD is protesting themselves against the mayor by not doing their job." From this tweet, the person said, "Must say I do not understand the NYPD strategy tonight. There's a huge group of officers just standing around here on Broadway 51st while looting is out of control in the surrounding blocks." What can the NYPD do at this point? Overnight, buildings were smashed. Roving bands, packs of people were just looting buildings up and down Fifth Avenue and Broadway. And I believe we have 700 arrested. 700 people arrested. When the NYPD enforces action against the people who are rioting, you don't see them rioting. Get it? Here, this is essentially a kind of, I guess, I don't know if it's a paradox, but think about it this way. If the police do nothing and everyone riots, then everyone freaks out and says the police aren't even doing anything. Look at this. The people are looting all around them. If the police stop the looting, they say they were just gassing and attacking peaceful protesters because there was no looting. Get it? If they stop the looting, then all you'll see is videos of regular people being hit and thrown by cops. The cops are standing down. Danny Gold, I believe, journalist. He's a journalist. I worked with him briefly at Vice News many years ago. Contacted someone. He tweeted about this. And I believe he was talking to someone in the NYPD who said, "I'm not going to risk myself over property and we're not getting any support." They get criticized. You have that issue where the SUV, the NYPD SUV, is stopped and the protesters surround it. And then it jolts forward real quick, knocking everyone back. And it's just everyone freaking out. But what's supposed to happen? You know what I see from these videos, right? I just see people. That's it. I don't see a difference between the looter and the officer firing a tear gas canister in like the guy's face, right? I want to make sure I'm very careful on this, but let me explain. I see people in Grand Rapids. A man is smoking a cigarette. A person pepper sprays him in the face. He turns around. Another person shoots him in the face with a tear gas canister. And I thought to myself, the police, they're cops. That's the point I'm making. I'm not saying all the cops are bad. I'm just saying when you see somebody fire a tear gas canister, you have to realize that's just a person. That's it. It's a person, and they have the power of the state behind them, which makes it problematic, and it's why many people call that stuff out. But when you see another person and they're smashing up a window and destroying everything, it's a person. Oh, but they say, but it's a noble protester so long as you don't see them committing these acts. You see the point I'm making is People have chosen their factions. They've chosen their sides. A person who's going around stealing things, and I'm not talking about the peaceful protesters, but I should stress the snowflake doesn't blame itself for the avalanche. These people who come out and get attacked by the police, it's because they're in an adversarial position. And when you see a cop go over the line and draw a weapon or shoot someone, it's because they are people too. They panic. They freak out. Training means nothing when your car is surrounded by people and you just heard a story of a lawyer throwing Molotov cocktails or some young woman tossing a Molotov at a police vehicle. They're people. They're not going to just sit around and wait. So you could argue they must be held to higher standards. It doesn't matter what you think. Like in that regard, it matters what the individual in that circumstance is willing to do. And that's why we have the problem with, the police as we have it already. The reason why you have videos where, the cops will shoot someone because their mentality is, I'm not risking my life over what I don't know about you. And then innocent people end up taking the brunt of that. Here's the story, because I want to talk about New York and how unemployment. Look, man, I went off on a little tangent there, but listen, New York City is done. Look, I tweeted, I don't think we can come back for this because of the escalating, civil unrest and tension between competing factions. Some people said, we always do, we always bounce back. I'm not saying America will cease to exist. I'm saying we can't stop the train we're on. We can pull the brakes all you want, but it's just sliding down the track full speed downhill. And I look at what's going on in New York City as a really good example. Maybe what will really end up happening is people will just flee. But think about this, and then we'll read the story. New York City was devastated by the coronavirus lockdowns. Partially by the coronavirus, but the lockdowns for the most part. We now know, according to data published by Cuomo himself, that staying home looked like it made things worse because 66% of infections during lockdown came from the home. Perhaps it would have been better if people were social distancing, but still going outdoors. I can't tell you, hindsight is 20/20. It's easy to say. But because of this, all these businesses were destroyed. All of the soft goods, all of the perishables, destroyed. All of the hard goods were fine until the looters showed up and destroyed what was left of the businesses in New York City. Now, I get it. There's still a lot of businesses there. But the small businesses that carry food, they were destroyed. The restaurants, the bodegas, the hard goods stores, the skate shops, the clothing stores, they're now being wiped out by the rioting. What will be left of this city? What will you get from living there? Nothing. Extremely high utility costs, the inability to grow your own food and water, and a police force that can't win no matter what they do. When they stop the looters, they get attacked for it. When they let the looters loot, they get attacked for it. So why would they bother at this point? There's no winning circumstance. There's no clear path to understanding what you need to do the right thing. Here's the story from NBC New York. NYC curfew extended through Sunday. 700 arrested as packs of looting youth defy order. This isn't about these people going around destroying everything. It's so amazing that it's CNN, multiple segments defending this. These people aren't here for ideological reasons. They're just trying to come up. We've seen it. Mayor Bill de Blasio says New York City's curfew will continue for the rest of the week through Sunday after police said packs of youth took to the streets overnight and violently looted stores across Manhattan and the Bronx. The initial curfew was imposed Monday to curb late-night violence amid a fifth night of New York City demonstrations in response to George Floyd's death in Minneapolis, police custody last week. It was the first such measure since a white cop's shooting of a black soldier in Harlem prompted in 1943. Wow. The extended curfew will be in effect from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Wow. And each day before a COVID-ravaged New York reopens after its months-long shutdown. Reopens. It's under lockdown again. What is there to reopen to? Nearly 2,000 people have been arrested over 5 days in New York City protests so far. Police cuffed another 700 Monday night into Tuesday. By far the biggest number since the protests started, and nearly doubling the total. Several more cops were hurt overnight, including an NYPD sergeant investigating break-ins in the Bronx. That officer was hit by a car. He is in serious condition, but is expected to survive. Another cop was hit by a vehicle when he tried to stop a cell phone store burglary on 8th Street in Manhattan. No arrests have been made in either case, though police are looking for several suspects. In total, nearly 50 police officers have been hurt since the citywide protests began Thursday night. What do you do when the police start standing down because they don't want to risk their lives? What do you do when there's no police to call because the ones that are working are too caught up in trying to stop the rioting? All of a sudden, we are in a pro-Second Amendment country. It's really, really amazing. I saw a really funny post. Someone said that the anti-gun lady from their neighborhood was organizing, protests with like the Parkland kids around the March for Our Lives stuff, was now fundraising for neighborhood watch security. I believe it. I really do. I mean, it's a post on social media, but come on, man. How many people, how many liberal urban, urban Democrats are now super pro Second Amendment? We got some hard numbers. I can show you. Take a look at this from the National Review. Gun sales spike. FBI background checks smash records in May. Gun sales and accompanying FBI background checks spiked last month, breaking records as the nation weathered the coronavirus pandemic and riots broke out in major cities over the death of George Floyd. Already this year, the FBI has recorded 15 million background checks in the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, closing in on breaking last year's record of 28 million background checks. A total of 3,091,455 checks were recorded in May, the highest May number since the system was created 22 years ago, and the third highest month on record. Meanwhile, gun sales have surged since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. April saw 1.7 million firearms purchases, a 71% spike from the previous April. Gun sales spiked higher in March with 2.6 million purchases, an 85.3% increase. My, oh my. Oh, there's more to it, though. Who are these people who are buying these guns? Now, there's some worrying thoughts here. I mean, we're talking about a potential for civil war, the early stages. You've got the Democrats saying no matter what Trump does, he's wrong. You've got Trump saying Antifa are terrorists, and then major publications defending Antifa. I'm sorry, that's an untenable situation. Tell me the way out from there. If the U.S. government, the president himself says they're the terrorists, and the media says, oh yeah, and you even have, I think, Keith Ellison, he's holding that Antifa handbook. What now? These people on the left defending Antifa are either going to oppose the government's declaration of domestic terrorism, which actually has to do with the individual arrests, not any grand labeling of the group. But what happens when they're funding their bail? Is that providing material support under the Patriot Act? I'm no fan of the Patriot Act, but I'm just telling you, it exists. The president says this, they say this. What happens? Does law enforcement have to go now start arresting public journalists and publications for promoting and encouraging terrorism? There are limits to what we can do under the First Amendment, but there is as much. I mean, look, we've seen rights suspended in the past from war efforts. So I'm not entirely sure we're walking out of this one, especially with 6 million guns being sold, with a record amount of new gun owners. These liberals. Now listen, I'm not ragging on the Second Amendment. I actually think people should have protect themselves. That was the reason I asked the question about what do you do when the police aren't there? This is why liberals are waking up to the fact that they need to be able to protect themselves. A gun store in Philadelphia was robbed last night. They tried to rob it. It was 3 or 4 men tried breaking in, and the owner was keeping watch, and he shot and killed a man. We also had a guy in Omaha, got attacked by some rioters, and in defense, he was knocked to the ground. He shot and killed a man. He got off on self-defense. Closed case. What will you do when the rioters come to your house, when they're banging on your doors and windows? They came to Cassandra Fairbanks' house, a conservative journalist. They fired live ammo at it and fireworks, and she's now fled her home with her daughter. She's armed, by the way. What will you do when they come to your house? And so you have all these liberals talking about why would anyone ever need a gun? I had a friend ask me that once, and I said, well, for me, I lived in a rural area outside of Miami, like 40 or so miles on a small farmland, basically. And the police were, they could be there in 45 minutes if you had an emergency, half an hour maybe. So what? Someone breaks in your house and you're just like, excuse me, sir, I know you're armed and you're threatening my family. Can you give me 30 minutes for no, I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. Now people are realizing as cars crash into NYPD's, into police officers, sending them flying, as cops are getting ambushed, as the National Guard is being deployed and chaos is gripping the nation, high-profile media personalities defend Antifa and condemn the president while the president calls out the military. I don't know what your plan is, man. I know what my plan is. Take a look at this. They actually say, I think what we're looking at is a 40% increase in new gun owners. One recent survey of firearm retailers shows us that 40% of these gun buyers are buying a firearm for the first time. Mark Oliva, a spokesman for the group, said in a statement, of those first-time gun owners, 40% are women, and these buyers are overwhelmingly purchasing handguns for personal protection. The sales come as the death toll from the coronavirus rose. Yeah. So this story is from today. I don't think the reason people are buying guns is so much about the coronavirus. I think that when the coronavirus pandemic started and the lockdown was announced, the people who went and bought guns were smarter than the people buying guns now. And that includes myself, mind you. I wasn't smart enough to go out. I saw this. I saw everyone rush into the store and I was like, you know what? I don't know. But the reason they were buying guns was likely because they understood what mass unemployment and a lack of resources leads to. And I mentioned this too. Civil unrest and revolution is usually fomented by high food costs. Now, this is disputed by some people, but in a lot of the Arab Spring countries, it was becoming very difficult for people to live and run businesses. Today, 40 million people are unemployed. It may have to do with the fact they can't buy things and they're desperate. And it may also have to do with the fact that they have nothing else to do and they're bored. But they're going out. The scary thing about all of these riots is that the snowflake doesn't blame itself for the avalanche. The individual who shows up, raises a fist, and just sings a happy song is a part of the avalanche, even if they don't do anything. How we deal with it, I don't know, because they certainly have a First Amendment right to speak their minds and assemble and do these things. But the avalanches are getting bigger and bigger. That's why I'm telling my friends, man, you got to stay home. There's a time and a place. But that's just my opinion. Like, if you want to go out and protest, legit protest, like we saw in D.C. where they captured the Antifa guy and gave him to the police, that I'm all down for. I respect. My fear, however, is that as each individual shows up, it's priming an avalanche in which the rioters exploit this. When the police are dealing with, increasing unrest, people drive in other parts of the city and loot and destroy. But take a look at this story. Furloughed Big Law associate charged in New York Molotov attack. He was furloughed in April as part of the firm's COVID-19 response. This man, Colin Mattis, 32, stands accused of damaging New York City Police Department vehicles with Molotov cocktails. Why? 32-year-old lawyer in New York City turned violent extremist in a month. This was within him all the time. This is a man you may have seen one day, a normal guy, working, getting a paycheck. They took his job away. Now, what does he replace that with? Seems like he found ideology to fill the gap. The loss. Look at this. He's a graduate of Princeton. Let me read this for you. According to his LinkedIn profile, Mattis is a 2010 graduate of Princeton University and a 2016 graduate of NYU School of Law. Mattis is a member of Pryor Cashman's corporate group, but he was furloughed in April as part of their austerity measures against the pandemic. His profile page was removed from the firm's website yesterday afternoon. Mattis's employment status with the firm is currently under review in light of these criminal charges. Here's a statement from the firm. 2,000 people arrested in New York in 5 days. 700 overnight. Mass arrests across the country. Faces plastered in videos. These people who are furloughed are going to be, I don't know, man. We're going to have a lot of people in our prisons. I'll tell you that. All of these kids, I call them kids, but they're like young adults, going around and rioting because they think it's a game. It is. They really do. There's a video of some kid who got shot in the leg with a rubber bullet. He's got a flesh wound with very minor bleeding. And one of these fake LARPing medics applies a tourniquet to his leg and pulls it tight and puts their weight into it. The guy on the ground is crying, saying, I don't want to lose my leg to a tourniquet. And they said, we need to stop the bleeding. This was performative. These were children who were imitating something they saw on TV. You do not apply a tourniquet for a minor flesh wound with light bleeding. You put gauze and padding on it and apply pressure. These people have no idea what they're doing. It's all just a game. They are kids, and to them, it is an action adventure. They want to feel like they're in a movie, but they do not understand what comes next. There's a scary video. I showed a still of it, of a woman in Iowa screaming about how they killed her sister. The protesters did. They shot her. Man, you thought that video was sad. I feel bad for all these Americans who are now finding themselves unemployed, who know nothing about what happens next. This man right here, Colin Mattis. I wish in your 32 years you would have watched any of the videos out of Syria, any of them, or any of the other countries, Iraq, for instance. So you can see the people screaming when you can see the father holding his dead son and screaming a wail so haunting it will haunt you at night. And you won't be able to sleep for days after hearing that wail of a man whose child died in front of them. Or now you can see a video of a woman whose sister was killed senselessly because you guys wanted to role play. But maybe it doesn't matter, man. Because these people don't know how stupid they are. They don't know what they're bringing on. And the snowflake doesn't blame itself for the avalanche. Perhaps this man just thought, I'm doing one thing, it's no big deal. Everyone else is doing worse. I'm just getting one bottle. I'm only going after one thing. All of these people I know, they're saying that they're posting these images, encouraging these things these days. They're posting things telling their white friends to activate, to go out and make sure they're part of this. Not realizing that although a single snowflake on its own is a beautiful and unique bit of nature, when combined with a billion more, it kills and destroys and wipes people out. So I don't know what the solution is. Don't ask me. All I know is I'm going to be that regular person staying home saying, I think this is worse than you'll realize, and you do not want a war. I love bringing up the quote from The Patriot. I've said it several times now, the Mel Gibson movie. But make no mistake, man, this is it shouldn't have to be said, but it is. This war will not be fought on the battlefield or some distant frontier, but in your homes, and your children will learn of it with their own eyes. These people have no idea what they've stepped into. They have no idea the arena that they've encouraged. And each and every one of these people who says to their friends, you must go out and get active, you are priming the avalanche for nothing but suffering. This man with this ever so charming headshot, Collinford, your life is over. Your Princeton University graduation now meaningless, and you will be nothing but a relic of the past. And when this is all wrapped up, when Trump sends the military out, if he does, they will look up every single photograph and every single video, and they will hunt you down for months. And you will find yourself in prison for the things you have done, because this is not a game. Putting a tourniquet on somebody who's got a minor flight is a scrape on his leg with some blood. These kids have no idea what they're doing. New York City is crushed. It's scary stuff, man. I am not laughing because it's a good thing. I'm laughing just out of shock. What will New York become of itself after this? I guess we can only wait and see. I'll see you at 4 p.m. over at timcast.net. That is my main channel. Thanks for hanging out.